Ears and Beers, episode 33. Did we just hit a grand slam? He's Adam Crowley. I'm Wesley Euler. No time for pleasantries. No time for what are we drinking. This is an emergency pod because Crowley, out of nowhere today, the Mountaineers announced the hire of a big name to the offensive staff, new offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, coming from USC, a guy who's familiar with Neal Brown, familiar with the Big 12. We'll get into what all this means for Parker and Chad Scott and the offense, some of these other guys. But Mr. Crowley, your first reaction at the news that dropped this afternoon on Monday?
My first reaction is that Graham Harrell's good at his job. And so you hire a guy that is good at what you're bringing him in to do. So that's big time nuts there for Neal Brown. The secondary take, and maybe this should be number one, is that Neal Brown understands his shortcomings. We talked about this on a previous pod. You have to understand the offense ain't going anywhere. You have to understand that you need somebody to come in from the outside to call the plays so you can take on more of a CEO role.
Yep.
And they released a statement today. Neal Brown talked about that. And Neal Brown was just on Metro News with Tony Caridi and the boys. And he said a lot of the same things, that he needed a CEO role and they needed to bring in a guy that was outside the program that could add new ideas, but still fit into a singular offensive philosophy. This is what we were begging for the other day, and it's exactly what they went out and got, baby.
Yeah, fan base has been begging for this. We've been begging for this. And it was, you know what, couldn't have come at a better time. I think on the heels of the Trickett news, right? Travis Trickett taking the OC position at USF, and now maybe that makes more sense as a lot of these pieces start to line up. But a lot of the fan base was, I think rightfully so, a little anxious, a little cantankerous. Like, hey, the season did not go the way we wanted it to go. We finished 6-7. The offense did not show much improvement throughout the course of the year. While we feel confident about the defense, it's the opposite on the offensive side of the ball. Something's got to change. We can't do the definition of insanity thing. And I think this is great. I'm with you. Somebody from outside the program, across the country. I mean, he's coming from 3 years in Southern California in the Pac-12, completely different conference, completely different part of the country. I love it. I think he's going to be great for the quarterbacks. And the biggest thing is, too, what you just touched on there. It takes in any line of life, in any walk of life, to admit when you're not good at something, or at least maybe that's not even the right way to put it, right? Just that you need help in any facet of life. It's always hard for people to admit, but particularly for coaches who make millions of dollars, whether it's in professional athletics or in collegiate athletics. It's tough to admit, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I'm not always the most brilliant guy in every room that I walk into. And to hear that CEO thing too, that's big for me. Just real quick, the exact quote that you referenced was, since the end of the season, I've spent time reflecting on the program and take responsibility, knowing we have to be better offensively. I've been serving in a dual role as the OC and head coach. We needed to bring in another voice for the offense. Having Graham as the offensive coordinator and working with Parker as the number 2 lead in the offensive room will make us a better, more efficient offense and move us in the direction we need to head. In turn, that will allow me to be a more effective CEO of the Mountaineer football program. And Crowley, I think even the most pessimistic amongst WVU football fans as it relates to Neal Brown right now, I think we can all agree he's shown the capability to do that CEO thing.
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably what his skill set is. I mean, he was a program builder-ish at Troy, and he's come here, and I thought really exceeded expectations in year one just by going 5-7, given the bare cupboard that was left behind. And we just haven't seen the upward mobility since then. The defense has been good. That statement tells me what we've already talked about. It also was interesting that Sean Reagan wasn't mentioned, and I don't think he's going to be back. I mean, they were very intentional in mentioning some of the other coaches. In that
Parker and Scott. Yeah.
And he's the quarterback's coach. Reagan was. And to me, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back. The other big thing here is it's been reported that Graham Harrell's going to make $650,000 in year one, which is a nice pretty penny, but that escalates to $800K in year two and $850K in year three. I mean, that's big boy money. It's a long deal too. I mean, that's what you're going to have to give coordinators, but
sure.
3 years is a lot. And $850,000 for West Virginia is a lot of money to be paying to a coordinator. So it shows a commitment from Shane Lyons, Neal Brown in the athletic department to get that done. There is a question now, who's going to coach the tight ends without Trickett being around? And do you know who the tight ends coach was at USC?
Yeah,
Seth Deggy.
I didn't until earlier today. Yeah, and I saw that Mike Casazza nugget that he released. Would that not be the most hilariously ironic hire in the history of hires?
It would be hysterical. I don't know if
Jared
it's going to
Deggy's
happen.
older brother gets a job with the program right after he exits stage right.
I mean, that would be hilarious. Regardless, they either need to go get a tight end coach that we see Neal Brown and Graham Harrell feel comfortable with, or you just find the best available young recruiting type guy and then see if somebody else on the staff can coach tight ends and piece it together that way. But they still need to pull together the staff. But this was a massive, massive move in the right direction today. And, you know, the transfer portal's been talked about an awful lot, and there were some specifics we can get into. But Neal Brown, when he talks about being a CEO, something he just said on Metro News was, you know, he wants to be able to develop his relationship with players even a little bit better than what he's been doing so far. I mean, you have an opportunity now, if you're not sitting in the offensive meeting room for every single thing, to be able to have a pulse more on the team as a whole. And you would hope, if there's success, also coupled with this, that maybe the transfers wouldn't bleed as much as we've seen them bleed.
Yeah, I think that's well stated by you. And cool, that's an interesting wrinkle. Speaking of transfers. Well, just real quick, right? The most exciting thing about this Graham Slam is now all of a sudden you've got a guy who's shown his ability to develop quarterbacks, a guy who was a quarterback, right, in the Big 12 at a Power 5 level. When you've got Goose, when you've got Nico, when you've got Garrett Green, that to me is very important. That's as important as anything in all of this. If he is a guy who can just develop, 18, 19, 20-year-old quarterbacks, that $850K is going to pay for itself.
Oh, for sure. And we already saw that I almost said Marcus Wheaton, that Wheaton
Steelers.
What am I trying to say?
Are you talking about the USC kid?
No, I'm talking about the wide receiver for West Virginia.
Oh, Bryce Ford Wheaton. Jesus, I could not get Marcus Wheaton out of my head. And then your brain just shuts off. Yeah. Bryce Ford Wheaton, he tweeted out something along the lines of, "This is good." And that's exciting. Maybe you don't lose a Winston Wright if you have already hired Graham Harrell. Not that I think he'll be a massive loss or anything like that, but I think wide receivers are excited. And another thing Neal Brown mentioned tonight, whenever he was talking with Tony Caridi and the guys, is that Graham Harrell is going to use the offensive talent at his disposal. They used a lot of 2 tight end stuff, but still threw the ball all over the yard at USC. And whenever he was at North Texas, they hit a bunch of deep plays and they actually ran the ball well too. So you might think air raid and they're going to throw the ball. There's no doubt, but sounds like he's also smart enough to be able to coordinate if things don't fall into that nice, neat little box of air raid. Bryce Ford Wheaton, mother bleeper. It's all right. On our last podcast, I couldn't remember that it was the extra timeout that Kansas State called that caused the delay for Jalen Bridges' free throws. So now we're even.
Bryce Ford Wheaton.
BFW. JCS. Graham Slam hire. We're both on the same page, right? Like we love this. This is exactly what we've been opining for, honestly, even before the Minnesota game.
Ask me who the next quarterback of the Mountaineers is going to be.
The new running podcast bit. Crowley, is it going to be Jackson Dart? I think
there's a shot.
What a name, huh? Jackson Dart for a quarterback? You kidding me? I'm gonna need a pack of darts to smoke if this kid really does transfer to Morgantown.
Oh my God. If he transfers to Morgantown, they beat Pitt. I'm smoking a carton that day.
A carton of Jackson Darts, baby.
Yes. You want to talk about NIL? Slap this kid's name on some cigarettes. We'll roll them up here in the Crowley abode and we'll sell them online, baby. The Jackson Darts. I don't know that West Virginia is going to be his ideal destination. I mean, he was a highly sought after guy.
Well, you mean you wouldn't want to go from Southern California to Morgantown? I mean, come on, we got beaches too.
A lot beaches. Got beaches everywhere. There's
beaches at the Annex. Beaches at.
We got Beechhurst.
Beaches at Joe Mama's.
Beaches at Mario's Fish Bowl.
Beaches at Fat Daddy's.
A lot of the teams that recruited him were out west, and I know BYU was in heavy on him. So we'll see. And NIL is going to play into this as well.
Sure.
He's listed as a dual threat, but
I'll give him $20. I'll Venmo him $20 if he comes at Jackson. Open offer, right? You know what? $40 if you go to WVU. How about that?
We'll pull our money. We'll pull our money.
Those
we'll go
Texas A&M boosters got nothing on me, baby.
But you want a guy with pedigree, obviously, and they've got one in Nico Marchio coming in. But
this
dude's got experience,
bigger pedigree.
He's got bigger pedigree. He's already got experience. He is the number 3 player listed, I believe, in the 24/7 transfer portal right now. So people are going to want him. I don't know what his relationship was like with Graham Harrell, but we saw already the quarterback for Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler. He goes cross country to a school, South Carolina. Nobody would have thought that they would be in it, but
yeah, that's true.
Former coach. Why? Oh, that's why. Maybe it happens. And Mike Kazaza brought up earlier today on 24/7 Sports that he had a West Virginia source that said it's absolutely possible that this could happen. Not a sure thing, not an absolute, but something that could definitely happen. And if it would, listen, it's all about getting the best player you can possibly get to start games. And if that means Nico has to redshirt, or if that means anything else, go get the guy.
You know that famous meme template that's like the guy holding hands with his girlfriend, but he's looking over his shoulder, looking at another girl? I'm going to make one of those, and the guy's going to be Mountaineer Nation holding hands with Nico, but it's going to be looking over his shoulder at Jackson Dart.
That's a great one. Because listen, he threw for 1,500 yards this year. He threw 9 touchdowns in a not easy situation. Whenever your coach gets let go in the middle of the year and you get thrown into the fire.
And he's competing with a senior quarterback who was a 3-year starter, whose job he took, who is now going to be the quarterback at Pitt, most likely. There's a lot of interesting storylines here. There's
also a tight end that's a big time player who also entered the transfer portal at around the same time. So you just start connecting dots, and maybe there's more hope than reality there.
Sure.
But the report from Kazaza, and I trust him. I mean, I pay for their site, for God's sakes. It makes me think that this is not something that's just a pipe dream as far as Jackson Dart's concerned. And you want to pump blood into the fan base. Do you want to get those season ticket numbers up?
Buddy.
Graham Harrell and Jackson Dart, they're selling a lot of freaking season tickets.
They're selling tickets. Yeah.
It changes everything.
It's giving you a lot more hope for week 1 at Heinz Field against Pitt as well.
You can win 9 games. That's right. I said it. Woo! I'm already.
With this defense, if the offensive line takes a step forward, I don't think that that's anywhere outside of the realm of possibility. You should beat Towson. You should beat Virginia Tech.
Yes.
You beat Pitt and you're 3-0. Kansas is going to be a tough one right after Pitt, coming home. It's going to be a tough one, but
if it wasn't in Morgantown, I would be nervous because you play Pitt and then you go out there and there's people running around the track, handing off batons. Yeah, it's a little scary, but I just
if you start 3-1, 4-0, you absolutely have a shot to win 9 games.
My only thing about Virginia Tech is tough place to play.
Yeah,
they haven't been exactly good on the road, but look, it gives people like me the opportunity to even think, hey, maybe they could win 9 games, 10 games.
Right.
Realistic or not, people believe. Let's go.
And you know what? I think that's what this program needed. You know, in the dark of winter here, coming off a couple. Let's just, again, not horrible weeks, not terrible, not the sky is falling, but an anxious fan base, an agitated fan base, a little cantankerous, wanting some change. Here we go, just at the right time. Hopefully you can pick up some momentum before the end of the signing window as well, too. Maybe add some transfers, maybe add a big name here or there. And then I think you're right. I think some of that pessimism that was swirling will real quick, those glass half empty folk will real quick. And you and I have been there, too. I don't want to sound like we haven't. But this is something to hang your hat on, something to get excited about for sure.
And I was wondering if this was a Shane Lyons decision and about Graham Harrell and not a Neal Brown decision. But reading the statement and then hearing from Neal Brown tonight, I think Neal was just understanding of, hey, here's where we've sucked and here's what we've got to do. Like another thing he mentioned tonight was that they're looking for a kickoff specialist in the transfer portal, someone who can boom the ball through the end zone. He's not leaving any stone unturned. They were terrible at starting field position this year.
Yep.
You make it so hard on the offense and the defense that way. Maybe you're not great at covering kicks. He tends to think that they can get there and be there because they spend a lot of time on special teams. But if you're booting it through the end zone, that's a worry you don't have to have anymore. So the reason I bring that up is just he seems like he understands through 3 years, okay, we haven't been great at this, and this. Here's how we go about fixing it. And that should be encouraging because I think a lot of West Virginia fans, you and I included, thought, boy, Is he going to make any change?
Stubborn
Yes.
was, I think, the word we were using. And you know what, Adam? Everything you just described, you know what that sounds like? A good CEO.
Yep.
Oh, buddy, good stuff. Our first emergency pod.
Beat Okie State tomorrow.
Beat Okie State tomorrow. We'll talk to you after then. Adam, before we go, the quarterback, Labor Day weekend at Heinz Field, week 1 in September, starting for the Mountaineers against Pitt is
Jackson Dart, baby.
I'm still going with Goose. You know what? Screw it. I'm going with Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart. And here's to you, Jackson Dart. Morgantown loves you more than you will know. Let's go, Mountaineers.
Oh.